bloodbath tonight in the rural town of Chinook.
Everyone here is hiding a secret.
4 more victims found scattered.
Some worse than others. I came as fast as I could. I'm Deputy Ruth Vogel. And soon, my quiet life will never be the same.
Realm presents a 30 Ninjas production, Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.
A bloodbath tonight in the rural town of Chinook.
Everyone here is hiding a secret.
4 more victims found scattered.
Some worse than others. I came as fast as I could. I'm Deputy Ruth Vogel. And soon, my quiet life will never be the same.
Realm presents a 30 Ninjas production, Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody! Wow, hello! Before we get started, as tradition dictates, Kristin and I need to tell you some stuff, yes?
God, we just can't stop telling people stuff. It's all we do. We just tell people stuff, and then we tell people more stuff.
Yeah, the first thing that we need to tell you is all about last episode's Sexual Tension Awards. Some very strong opinions, one very strong opinion, and 3 things lost to obscurity.
It's almost like one opinion lit the other opinion cigarette in this round of Sexual Tension Awards.
Almost just like that, because wow, way back in a whole other place, in 4th place, it's Ben and Buffy with 3%. Charlie Weber in 3rd place with 4. Charlie Weber and Face Acting in 3rd place with 4% of the vote. Gronks and Ben in 2nd place with 5% of the vote. This has to be the greatest slab of vote a 1st place winner has ever taken in the history of the Sexual Tension Awards. It's Xander and Spike with 88% of the freaking vote.
Yeah, they deserved 100%. I don't know if that's the biggest chunk, actually. Emily McLongstreet, are you out there? I know that you have your math chart somewhere. Let us know. What is the largest win a win has ever winned in the Sexual Tension Award corner? Congratulations, Xander and Spike. We will mail you your trophy, which is going to be shaped like a pair of Xander hands lighting a Spike Morley cigarette. You're welcome. We have a couple of events coming up, which I want to tell you about. One is this Saturday, August 15th, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, our favorite time to do things. We are doing a buffering Zoom hangout with our $10 patrons. So come and join us. Jenny will sing some songs. I will watch Jenny sing some songs and probably dance. Yeah, there might be a dog named Frank. There might be a cat named Gus. There probably won't be a cat named Sam because she hates the camera, but we could try. You should join us. It's a lot of fun. Also, a couple Saturdays later will be the next Buffering Book Club. We are reading N.K. Jemisin's The City We Became, and I'm losing my fucking mind because it's the first time I've ever read N.K. Jemisin, and I'm enamored. I'm in love. That is August 29th, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That is for our $5 patrons and higher.
We had such a fantastic time last week with a new member of the buffering team, Mackenzie McDade, who facilitated our first set of anti-racism reading and discussion groups. You can learn more on all of the work being done to create and maintain an anti-racist base here at Buffering the Vampire Slayer at bufferingthevampireslayer.com/justkeepfighting, which is now also linked up on the top bar of the main page for you to find more readily. A few weeks ago, we posted a special episode discussing those ongoing commitments, and Mac has asked to take over our Instagram this afternoon, Wednesday, August 12th, to do an Instagram Live tackling some of the questions and feedback we've gotten. We are so excited to have Mac working with us, and you can tune in live tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, or watch it after it posts, as it will remain on the main feed. Thank you, as always, Mac.
Yes, thank you, Mac. And hey, there's another person who we've been talking a whole bunch about in episode, and she's here with us today. Alba Daza, hello. Are you there? Are you there in Canada?
Hello, yes.
Hello.
Hanging out here in Montreal. How's it going?
People, all of our Canadian listeners are so excited to have a Canadian here inside the pod. We thought, collectively, we've all been working together, the 3 of us now, for the last bunch of episodes. What was your first episode with us? Intervention? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was Intervention.
And we've been talking for a minute now about having you up here in the intro to like properly introduce everyone to your wonderful voice and to talk a little bit about how the hell we wound up here working together. I feel like the way you came into the pod is a good story, a story worth telling. So do you want to talk a little bit about how we went from like being Kristin and Jenny and Alba listening to the podcast to Kristin and Jenny and Alba making the podcast together?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I was a longtime listener of the pod since 2017, I think. And I was just a really big fan. I was really excited to go to prom this year in April before it was canceled.
Sorry.
I used to, go on the Hangouts, and I became a patron, and I was listening to all the interviews. And after George Floyd was murdered, the world took a really big shift, and a lot of things started to come up. And you guys put out a statement, and there was like response to that statement, and I ended up joining the Scoobies of Color group on Facebook, which is specifically for Scoobies of Color. For anyone who doesn't know, and if you're a Scooby of Color and you want to join that Facebook group, it's a really great community. There's a lot of support there, and I was inspired to send you guys an email with ideas on how I personally thought that you could make the podcast more BIPOC friendly. And I was really concerned because I saw a lot of people like on YouTube and creators just kind of doing blanket solutions. I'm doing air quotes. And I was really concerned that was what was going to happen with the podcast. And I really didn't want that. So out of my own, love for Buffy and love for the podcast, I decided to just like take a couple days, come up with some ideas, and construct an email that I sent to some Scoobies of Color to proofread and sent it to you guys. With no expectations. And then you guys emailed me back.
We were so excited to get your email, and I think that we've talked a little bit about this on the podcast, but I think that just the act of the outreach itself, felt like a measure of trust, a measure of hope at the very least, maybe not trust. And the other piece of the excitement of receiving it was that I think it was like 6 points or something like that. And every single point, I remember, Jenny, do you remember me texting you? I was like, Jenny, this email, it's like, we can do every single one of these things. Like, these are all things that we're able to change, able to shift, moving our Patreon content and making that available for free for Black and Indigenous listeners. We're creating, can we say the jingle that we're creating? We're creating a white supremacy jingle to put in the pod in season 6. And, it was just full of really brilliant ideas. And so we reached out to you and had an initial conversation sort of saying that, like, thank you so fucking much for writing this. We can do all of this. And these are some of the ways that we might do that. But do you want to come on board? Like, can we hire you to implement some of this, like to talk about implementing some of this?
Yeah, the initial email that we got from you, Alba, was so amazing for like all of the reasons that Kristin said. Like it was just like every idea, like every point in the email was like even more exciting than the one previous, and like offered us all these ways in which we could sort of like just make the space more accessible or more accountable, and bring in more elements that are already and will continue to make the show better and better, and the community space better and better. In particular, I was like really excited to have the prompt of figuring out how to go about creating a white supremacy jingle, and like thinking about musicians of color that I'm connected to that I could potentially collaborate with or bring on board to work on that. And then, like Kristin said, we asked you if you would be interested in consulting to sort of like implement some of these ideas, because even though we were like looking at the ideas and thinking like, wow, these are all awesome and we can do them, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have the best intuition about like what's the most responsible way we can approach all of these things.
We did a little work, the four of us, me, Jenny, you, and Mac. And then we learned more about what you do in your day-to-day. And we started talking about creative things. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think it was really cool, like that second conversation that we had on the phone, just the three of us. And you were like, do you want to like be in like work on the Facebook group? And I was like, no.
Not at all. No, thank you.
Well, it's like I really don't think I'm like capable of doing that. But like I really want to work on creative aspects. And my background is in film production, and I have like a little podcast that I did a year ago that I'm like restarting now called My Mama So. Yeah, so I have a background in creative production, and I was just like so excited for the opportunity to even say like I want to do this on Buffering, because literally the first episode that I ever heard like way back in 2017, I was like, I want to be on this podcast. Like I want to work on this podcast. And like now it's just so wild to be like 2020, and I'm like, whoa, man. I was like a little baby, like I want to be on this podcast, and now like here I am, like, hi everyone, I'm on the podcast.
It's so fucking great. It's so great. Like, we're so excited to have you here for a million reasons. I mean, I think, you know, obviously anyone who works on the podcast really has to be a fan of Buffy, but I think it's so powerful that you came to it as a listener as well, especially because of the work that we're doing now with respect to the community here. Like the skill set that you have is sure creative production, and you're fucking great at it, by the way. We've only done a few episodes together, but yeah, you're fucking knocking it out of the park. But also I think just having your voice as a part of the creative process as somebody who really understands the community here is so powerful and important. And also, it's just wonderful to have somebody to work with outside of me and Jenny, you know? Alba, we've talked about you coming on as a consultant, then coming on as a producer, but we haven't been specific in explaining what, you know, you're producing in a lot of ways. Sure, you would like us to play the Spike jingle when Spike lights a cigarette. We get that. But do you want to talk a little bit more about the specificity of what you're bringing to the show?
Yeah, so I think overall, in an overarching capacity, I'm bringing my lived experience as a POC and my perspective as a POC fan of Buffy into the podcast. And so watching the episode through my perspective, which is not everyone's perspective, it's of course my own experience, and it's not all POC perspectives, but bringing that perspective into the discussions around each episode and around the show in general. And then also trying to find places and be aware of places that we, as the three of us or the four of us, including Mac, are lacking perspective in another area, and where we can bring in more perspectives and different interviews, or, you know, researching the lion dance and the dragon dance for Lunar New Year, or like the importance of a gourd in magic, you know, because it comes up twice.
That was really a big stone we overturned. Who knew what was underneath the gourd stone? I'll tell you what.
Yeah. And you'll hear me later talking in the podcast, this episode, about toys and my own relationship to toys as a POC, and how that has affected my interpretation or my reading of this episode.
You're also going to be in episode doing a segment for us with somebody else. So do you want to talk for a minute and let them know what you're bringing to the podcast directly into their earballs just in moments?
Yes. So I had a really fantastic conversation with Kandis with a K, and she is a witch from LA. And we had just like such an interesting conversation about magic and witchcraft and kind of the practical aspects of that, and how that was implemented into the show. And I'm just so excited for everyone to hear it, because there's also just like really good pieces of wisdom in like everyday life. It's very applicable to everyone, whether you're a practicing witch or not, or whether you want to start practicing magic, and just kind of explorations on this magical world that we live in and all these realms that we participate in. And it was just like a really, you know, magical conversation.
I think that everybody's going to be very excited to hear both of you in the podcast. You're going to be real excited to meet Kandis in a little bit, because she fucking rules. And I think, you know, and you just gave voice to this, but I think that what is so powerful is that both you and Mac are bringing your perspectives, which are invaluable to us, but also this direction toward places where we need to find other people to also come into the fold, to also come into the conversation. And we're learning together. And, you know, it's just been a wonderful start. We're so happy to have you here as a voice in the podcast, and to see like how we grow together and what happens, you know, as we go into the next season. We're just really fucking stoked to have you here. So, you know, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you guys, too, for being open and for following through with your intentions. I think it says a lot. You know, I think there's a lot of things about people saying that they're going to do things or saying that they're going to change and they don't. And so I think that following through with the intention, following through with the promises that you're making to your audience is really important and sets a really good example for everyone listening.
Thank you. I mean, you know, we are trying to take it one step at a time, you know, and commit to things that we can do and take those steps and, you know, be ready to also trip and fall and get back up again. And so I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like, before we roll into the episode, to hear the shortest email from a listener of all time that I think is a delight that was inspired by last episode?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So Victor wrote in. I don't know if you remember me saying, oh, Spike's RV, it flipped over in the desert, and then it's used later, and they make, you know, drugs in it. And I was making a crossover joke that was like not that funny, but it inspired this email, which is why you should always just try, you know. Victor said, if someone was cooking drugs in Spike's RV, do you know what they'd be making?
Would it be methamphetamines?
No, but that's great. That's great too. Alba, do you have a guess?
What?
No.
It would be hell meth, everyone.
Oh, wow. That is much better. And much more in universe for the pod.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
I think we have introed wonderfully, and I think we should get into, oh my God, I'm so scared. I can't believe it. It's season 5, episode 21, which means that there's only one more episode of the season after this. So, you know, if you want to pause, it's fine. We understand. Hold on to it. It's all just slipping through our fingers. Are we ready?
Yep.
All right, let's
Ready.
do it.
Hello, and welcome. To Buffering the Vampire Slayer, a podcast where we're watching and discussing every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer one at a time, spoiler-free. I'm Jenny Owen Youngs.
And I am Kristin Russo. And hey, this week, it's all happening. We're talking about season 5, episode 21. That's 21 out of 22, folks. We're almost to the end. The weight of the world. Stay tuned at the end of this podcast every other week for an original song written by Jenny, recapping the Buffy episode we are discussing. And hey, if you haven't started listening to our Angel podcast, Angel on Top, you should do it. They're about to get to that episode called No Blues Like Girls Blue. So... who wrote this? Who directed it? Jenny, where are we?
Well, The Weight of the World was written by Doug Petrie, directed by David Solomon, and originally aired on May 15th, 2001.
Hey, this is the one according to IMDb where, when Buffy lapses into a catatonic state, Willow uses magic to find out why. A tug of war erupts between Glory and Ben over Dawn's ultimate fate. Well written, IMDb this week, giving them credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Jenny, I want to start this episode this week by telling you that, my job here, your job too, is to watch the episode and to talk about it, right? And
Yes.
I think I had like a sincerely deep emotional response to where we are in the series, because I could not bring myself to sit down and watch this episode. Like, it wasn't like super conscious in my mind. It was just like, I kept being like, oh, I'll do it, and then putting it off. And like, even today when we're taping it, I was like, I can wait another hour. And so I just sat with myself and I was like, self, what's happening with you? Like, why are you not? And I think it's because I'm getting really anxious about how far along in the season and series we are, that like we started this in season 1 and then we were like, wow, can't believe we're in season 3. And now we're like about to end season 5. And that makes me feel feelings. And I think I'm resisting it. So I just wanted to be transparent
Totally.
with everyone. That's what's going on.
Yeah, it's weird to be right here. Right at just about the end of season 5. It's very weird. It's very weird. Also, my experience rewatching this episode was like, I had less recall of like everything that happens in this episode, except like I remember the loop. I wonder if like every time I rewatch the show, I like get to this episode, see the thumbnail of Pigtail Buffy, and I'm like, ugh, I cannot watch Buffy be a child stuck in a loop. I don't know if I can do this. And then because Ben has a room at Glory's freaking okay.
It's like
Okay.
What's the guy's name in What We Do in the Shadows?
Buffalo Bill.
No.
Oh, Guillermo. It's like Guillermo's dark little cupboard under the stairs.
Yes, it's like the Harry Potter Guillermo Ben connection there.
Okay, so let me walk you through what happened previously on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was Glory, 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 Ben, Glory, Glory, Ben, Glory, 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 Giles and a javelin in his ribs. And then do you remember that Buffy took down the Byzantium general with one punch in the face? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either. I needed that recap. Yeah. Don't forget, Jenny, that we get and I'm glad that we get the last moment with Buffy, just so that in this episode from front to back, we get at least 2 gutting moments of Buffy, because the previous on has that fucking face of hers sitting down, giving up. And
Yeah.
I needed a reminder to feel sad and defeated. So thank you, previously on.
Hooray! So once the episode starts, the minions are making a big fuss about packing up all of Glory's stuff because she's going to wear dresses in her hell dimension? This isn't her like natural form, is it? Like, what are we doing?
I have a question, and it is, when you are traveling interdimensionally, what is the luggage policy? Like, do you get like 2, a carry-on, a personal item, and one up to 50 pounds? Or like, is it increased for you because it's a longer travel, more intense? Like, if anyone...
I think when you're a hell god, I think the deal is it's like having a private jet. You can bring on whatever you want as long as it doesn't,
the limit does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they, since we're talking about Glory and Glory's clothing, they do a good job in this episode. First of all, Glory looks fucking hot in that black pantsuit with that little belt underneath that little cloak thing. But my point was not to talk about Glory looking hot. It was to talk about them doing a good job giving us an outfit that fits both Glory and Ben.
Yeah.
So that we can take them both seriously, like it's like
Ish. Yeah. Ben just looks like he's meeting Giles for like their couple's wizard costume on Halloween. Yeah. Excellent pick, everyone. And because imagine if what happens later when they're like swapping back and forth really fast between Glory and Ben as they like essentially trade lines talking to each other and like tossing Dawn around, if Ben was wearing like a red dress and stilettos.
Right. Would have taken a little bit of the edge off of the intensity of the conversation, I think.
Or heightened it to a breaking point.
True.
Glory is disturbed to discover that she does not want to kill her minions when she is upset. And she is like she seems like she's being totally overwhelmed by emotions and she doesn't know why. And I would just like to say that usually when I feel like this, it goes on for about 24 hours and I huff and puff and yell and cry. And then I have a moment of a light bulb going off in my head. And then I open the period tracker app on my phone and realize that I am PMSing. But that's just me. That's not what's happening here.
I mean, we don't know what glory cycle is, so
I guess that's true.
you know.
But, having the magical barriers between you and the mortal with whom you share a form break down.
Do you
right?
think gods menstruate?
Well, it's a great question. If they're in control, no. If you didn't have to, would you opt in?
No.
I don't think so.
I am about to get my period, and I will tell you that just today I was thinking, why weren't we created with a button where we could be like, don't need this egg. No, thank you. Will not be fertilizing. This egg will not be viable for fertilization. So let's just skip it. We'll just let it go. Just release the egg. Drop it out of the body. Just bye. Anyway, continue.
That
Jenny.
is what's happening.
You were talking about something that was not God's menstruating.
Glory's just having a tough time, man, and she doesn't know why, and it's all new to her. And she's like, I'm finally gonna go home. I'm gonna kill fucking everyone. Why am I not happy?
Yeah.
And then she turns and says, what do you think? To Dawn, who's all tied up and gagged.
It's really good. That's a good reveal. I like that moment. I think it's well done. And hey, we've been giving a lot of credit where credit has been due to Michelle Trachtenberg, but she's just really still I would like to go back to the beginning of the season where we were like, so do you hate Dawn? Do you like Dawn? Everybody's like, I hate Dawn. I hate Dawn. I hate Dawn. And I know not all of you said that, but from the beginning, I was like, I don't remember disliking Dawn. And I feel validated in my own opinion. So I think Dawn is fucking great. I like Dawn. I'm a Dawn fan. So suck it, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a lot easier to be a Dawn fan as an adult.
Yes. I mean, I have full room for all of you who were teenagers and didn't like Dawn, but I just feel like Michelle Trachtenberg does a good job. I like the vehicle that is Dawn, like the character and why the character is brought to us. And I think it's good. I like it. So there. Anyway.
I think she bears the burden of doing the most whining on the show. Yeah. Which is, it's not the most fun thing for somebody to do.
Yeah, that's fair. But I don't know, maybe
Michelle Trachtenberg is doing a great job. Dawn is getting the freaking job done. It's all totally under control. Speaking of getting the job done, I have incredible news. Spike, with his little hand wrappings flapping in the breeze and his long coat flowing behind him, has hot-wired Ben's car, and I need a cold drink.
Uh-huh.
I need a fucking oscillating fan is what I need.
A mist, perhaps?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
This is, even though we don't get to see it, just knowing that it happened is hot. I also want to ask our beautiful listenership, have you ever hot-wired a car? Has this ever happened to you? If you have ever hot-wired a car, I would like to know about it. And if you could explain how it works in whatever way would not legally compromise you or us, just in case spreading a how-to of car hot wiring is bad practice. I don't know. But I'm very curious about this. I feel like cars are one of those things that are actually a lot simpler than we are led to believe. And by keeping us in the dark, keeping us away from the information, like the keys that unlock the secrets of cars, we are, of course, held hostage to other people to take care of our cars.
Deep.
Is this... How am I doing?
I think it's time for the patriarchy jingle, unexpectedly.
Oh my God. Ladies can mechanic too. But all right. The patriarchy!
Yes, that was my point, Jenny. Ladies can mechanic too. And I feel like the people that are often most withheld from on knowledge about cars are women. So that's why we played the jingle, because I think that I should know more about cars. And I'm actually Now that you bring up hot wiring, like, I'm disappointed in myself that I haven't looked into it more. It seems like something that, like, I've been on the planet for almost 40 fucking years. You'd think I would have had a moment by now where I'm like, you know what I need to Google today? A YouTube video on how to hotwire a fucking car. Because I mean, there's not much sexier than you being able to hotwire a fucking car.
In case of emergency.
Yeah. Anyway, we also learn, apart from all of our deep, deep attraction to Spike and his hot wiring, that Buffy is still not here. She's not present. Xander and Willow have this like brief exchange where he's like, can you just try again? And you kind of think like it's almost like a little misdirect. Like you kind of think Willow's going to do magic, right? But she's mostly just like, hey, Buffy, like, are you, can you hear me? Are you in there? And then we go to the credits.
Yep.
Back at the Chevron.
Back at the Chevron. So there's lots of infighting going on here with the Scoobies, trying to figure out what to do. Nobody really knows what's going on. Giles suggests that Buffy's experiencing a state of catatonia. Mm-hmm. Willow's uncertain about whether they should or should not move her.
Xander has an amazing line where he says, I am so large with the not knowing. It's just such like a, I don't know, it's just a nice phrasing to be saying like, I don't know, you know, it's a nicer way to say that. So yeah, and Spike resorts to violence.
Classic Spike.
He, you know, and I mean, like, again, I think that his mentality of like, she's the slayer, so you just have to like trigger her fighting instinct to bring her back. It's not off the map. I think that like it was worth a shot, literally.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. And then our boyfriends start tussling.
Also, usually I'm here for Spike saying something like, when all is said and done, I'm willing to wager Buffy likes it rough. But maybe now is not the time.
I forgot.
You know?
I forgot that he said that. Yeah,
maybe not now, Spike.
Not okay. But obviously, the reason that we have room for Spike backhanding Buffy is because of the fantasy genre of this show. But I agree with you. If we're in the fantasy genre, cut it out, Spike. That is not a line for now. Agree.
But as you say, happier times, our boyfriends are tussling. Wow.
They are. They're just, I wish that their fight was the same as the Harmony Xander fight. You know, they were just like slapping each other. We get a little bit of that later.
Yeah.
But
they don't have long to get in because Willow is just like, separate.
Listen, who knows what will become of Willow's next jingle, but like this is either it or it'll change. But we got to give her something here. And I'll tell you what will not do for our Willow anymore is the square root jingle. It won't do.
No, it's more like.
You messed with the wrong witch. Now you're going down, bitch. You messed with the wrong witch. Now you're going down, bitch.
Okay, so love to see leadership Willow.
Me too.
Xander, you're taking Giles to the hospital. Anya, you're looking after Tara. Spike, you're going to go check in on Glory and see if she's still at Glory's hotel. And don't even think about veering from this plan and looking for payback or I will kick your butt.
Mm-hmm.
And Willow says she's going to help Buffy. Wonder what that's going to look like.
Me too.
Love this plan. Love a plan.
I love a plan, and I agree with you. I need a little bit of that oscillating fan you were using for Spike earlier for this.
Right?
Take charge, Willow. It's doing it for me. And then we get what may be one of the most classic scenes,
man,
in the series. We're just gonna play it for you because we all need to experience it together.
Will. Now, don't turn me into a horned toad for asking, but what if we come across Ben?
I don't think a doctor's what Buffy needs right now.
Well, yeah, especially not one who also happens to be Glory.
What do you mean?
You know, Ben is Glory.
You mean Ben's with Glory?
With, in what sense? They're working together?
No. Ben is Glory. Glory's Ben. They're one and the same.
Well, when did all this happen?
Not 1 hour ago. Right here, before your very eyes. Ben came, turned into Glory, snatched the kid, and vanished, remember? You do remember. Is everyone here very stoned? Ben, Glory. He's a doctor, she's the beast. Two entirely separate entities sharing one body. It's like a bloody sitcom. Surely you remember.
So you're saying Ben and Glory
Have a connection.
Yes, obviously, but what kind?
Oh, I get it. It's very crafty. Glory's work the kind of mojo where anyone who sees a little presto changeo instantly forgets. And yours truly, being somewhat other than human, stands immune.
So, Ben and Glory are the same person?
Glory can turn into Ben, and Ben turns back into Glory.
And anyone who sees it instantly forgets.
And a Cupid doll for the lady.
Excellent. Now, do we suspect that there may be some kind of connection between Ben and Glory?
Oh my God. So many of you have been, tweeting at us or commenting on Instagram or whatever. It's where the jingle originated from. It's just it's so fun and campy and funny that, the lore of it is that the spell has been done, or the magic has been done, so that even if you see Glory transform into Ben or Ben transform into Glory, you cannot remember it. And it's a fun little thread through this whole episode.
I love it. I also think, I could be wrong, but by the end of this scene, Tony Head looks like he is 1 millimeter away from absolutely losing it.
Yeah. He's probably just having
He looks
so
like he's
much
hanging on by
fun.
a thread.
Right. Oh, God. That's when you want that. Oh, are there bloopers from Buffy somewhere? Are there outtakes? I would I would delight in it.
Tell us if you know something we don't know.
Over to the minions and the groupies.
Okay, who would have thought that beyond just the sort of whatever's going on with Glory kind of feeding on the brains of people, that she also turns them into unpaid laborers. Every person whose brain she has sucked is there with a freaking welding mask or a hammer, just getting the job done.
No, it's very what were those?
Efficient.
The doozers, the dozers. What were those guys in Fraggle and Fraggle Rock? You know those little guys that were always down hammering little things? I think they were called the doozers.
Oh my God, they are the doozers. They've got hard hats. They've got tool belts. They're very cute. Yes, this is a straight up doozer crew.
Yeah, she's made a crew of doozers, and they're building something. This, I guess, vessel for Dawn, and this ritual that has to take place at a very specific time. Were we told that at any point until right now?
No, I don't think so.
Don't either.
This is the tallest minion I have ever seen. All the other minions are 3 apples high, and this minion is taller than every other cast member.
You mean the special minion, the holy minion, the anointing minion,
priest minion,
minion, yeah.
Good gravy, Captain Anointer.
Yeah.
Anointer, I hardly know her, as I always say.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is where. Yes, Jenny, I can see your hands. I can see them.
I'm so excited. Did you recognize when the tall minion is anointing Dawn, and then Glory in her state kicks him out, and she goes, "Get out. Get out, get out, get out," which is literally a Dawn quote from an earlier app.
I did notice that. I did.
They're not so... They have more in common than any of us maybe have really given them credit for. Not so different, you and I.
Yeah, I think Glory is well aware of it, She's bud. And, she's not wrong. I mean, she's a god of chaos and destruction, but she's not wrong in the sense of, like, they both are, like she says, like, our human selves are, for girls like us, this body is a costume, right? It's a costume over what we really are. And, like, we share this thing. We're both going home. You fit in a lock and I belong in my hell dimension. And, like, it's a big day for all of us here. But you and I, we're like the core of this whole thing. And it's first of all, Claire Kramer, standing ovation.
I love Claire Kramer in this ep. She's so great.
She's so good because she's really tasked with, she's been singularly focused for season 5, right? It's probably, listen, I used to be an actor, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of actors. But I feel like a dream to be like, my motivation is X, right? Because you just go, and she's going for that. She needs the fucking key. So you don't know how the acting's going to be when all of a sudden you no longer just want X. You've gotten X and you feel all these feelings for the first time. Like, that's a totally different acting lift. And she knocks it out of the fucking park. She's so good in this episode and really makes you, just like every big bad, I think, in the series, just like, I don't know if I had a lot of feelings in my heart for the Master, but I do like Mark Metcalf. So, but, most of the big bads in this show, you have like a spot in your heart for. Like, you're not rooting for them, but you also like kind of understand some of their motivations, what they want and why they want what they want. Anyway, Glory is she's trying to bond with Dawn. Dawn is, of course, not having it. And she's also really vulnerable, and that's like back to, it sort of reminds me of back at the dining table when Buffy was like, hey, they could take you away from me, when you all of a sudden like saw this little kid face. It's like Dawn's really there for the majority of this episode of just like terrified, too terrified to be sarcastic, too terrified to joke, too terrified to say she's going to fight back. She's just in a place where she's like, I want to go home. Please don't do this. Claire Kramer is like, what is this horrible thing that I feel? What is this nagging feeling? And Dawn's like, that's called guilt, buddy. And that's what humans feel. And, to Glory's credit, she's like, how do you people fucking do this? How do you walk around?
Amazing question that we're all asking ourselves.
It's not an easy task at all. We'll come back to like more on this conversation too, because they're going to get deeper into it. But this is the beginning. And this is also like, we hear her say like, your blood is the key to the key. It's always blood. It's always blood, right? I mean, when is it anything else? Which goes back to the question of, do gods menstruate? You know what I mean? Like, maybe they do because blood. Like, blood's important. Anyway, she says, tomorrow you bleed, little girl. Beautiful line delivery. And then we go to this scene at Xander's that begins with Anya and Tara and Willow. And, we've already given Anya credit and acknowledgement for the fact that she's learning how to be a compassionate person, a person, speaking of, like, this is like another thread of the same thing. The human, what makes you human? What qualities make you human? These feelings. And so Anya is, Glory's trying to shrug off all this horrible shit. And Anya is trying to learn, like, what is this? And how do I operate with it? And she's come a long way.
I love the juxtaposition of, Willow saying, like, wish me luck. And Anya's like, good luck.
Yes.
In a way with that she like learned how to do it in a book or something. Mm-hmm. And then once Willow like walks away and like goes into the room to do it, like kind of even like maybe without even necessarily realizing what she's doing, Anya's just like, good luck. Like very earnestly, kind of like under her breath.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Because it underlines that, right? It's like she is learning because she just did it. She didn't even mean to do it. She did it. She said good luck.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a lot of like big things to talk about in this episode. But one of them is the state that Buffy is in. And we're gonna get there. Yes, Jenny, what is it?
Oh, sorry. I thought when you said we have big things to talk about, I thought you were going to say, like, for example, the fact that there's an old-timey welding poster hung over Xander and Anya's bed.
Yeah.
What?
Is it Xander and Anya's bed? Has Anya moved in? I'm not sure that
It's
is
like, even if Anya still has her place, that's Xander and Anya's bed.
Yeah.
Anya has Anya's bed, and then she co-owns a bed with Xander.
This room is done very well for like a Xander who has a job and some income now, but is still like in his low 20s.
He's like, who am I?
Yeah.
I love welding.
You know, he's got like some fancy lamp that he's probably so excited that he bought. And he's like, look at my beautiful room. But that aside, no, the big things that I was talking about, one is the fact that Buffy is in this sort of catatonic state. And so Jenny and I are going to talk a little bit about that deeper into the episode. But the other thing, and I don't know if you remember us trying to conjure a witch, if you will, but we put a call out to the universe because, like, Willow is just shouting things, shatter, mirror shatter, separate, things separate. She's fighting God. She's now she's going into the mind of her best friend to find her and bring her out. Even Giles in this episode is like, whoa, 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 right? Like, this is some fucking advanced ass shit.
And I gotta say, she makes it all look very easy.
I mean, this spell especially, right? There's no incantation. There's nothing. I think she lights a candle and she sits down and there she is. And so Jenny and I, we have our limitations of what we can speak to and what we cannot. And, hey, we found a witch, didn't we, Jenny?
Would it be indelicate to ask, which witch?
I'll tell you what, a lot of our witch listenership wrote in with some incredible, and so I would encourage you to listen to our mailbag this season because it's going to be full of some additional witch feedback. But we mentioned in the intro Candace, and we have a conversation between, this is really exciting because it's Candace and our new producer Alba. They're in conversation and they're going to talk just a little bit about both Candace and her history as a witch and her history with the show. And, maybe what she thinks about some of the witchcraft happening in this episode.
So thank you so much, Candace, for being on this segment with us and talking about witchcraft. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. A little bit about me. I'm from New York originally, moved to Georgia when I was 11, moved to Philly when I was 20 something. And so I've kind of lived all over the East Coast, and I've been in LA for 6 years. And I started identifying as a witch probably around 2010 when I moved to Philly, because there was a lot of witchy stuff going on in Philly. There's a lot of spirits and a lot of history there. But I would say that being a witch is probably something that's been going on my entire life. Starting out with dreams and really not having language to talk about certain things. And I think when I finally understood the word witch, I had a strong identification with it. It just felt right for me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the dreams and what you mean by that?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I've had really vivid dreams and even like prophetic dreams, kind of prophetic feelings, like kind of an intuition that I've been able to kind of develop over my life. But it started off when I was really young. I think my mom told me about a dream I had when I was 4 years old about being in the sky with Michael, which is an archangel. And I just feel like, no kid is making that up. And then I remember one time my grandmother actually was attacked and I was supposed to be going to sleep. And I just kept saying, like, I can't sleep. Something's wrong. I can't, I was just really restless. And like 5 minutes later, we got the call saying like we needed to come and check on my grandmother because she was like mugged or something. So just those things I remember from childhood being very strong with my intuition. The thing that kind of pushed me over the edge into the spirituality aspect of life is when my grandfathers passed away. So there was this weird thing that I kept noticing that when I would be around someone and then they would die like a few days later. So my grandfather took me on a cruise to celebrate me graduating college back in 2009. And then when we got back, he got really sick and we went to visit him, and then in a matter of days, he had passed away. And then in 2010, my other grandfather, who's in New York, I went to visit my family there. And he had just gotten out of the hospital And they were like, well, you have a clean bill of health. I think I left New York on a Tuesday or something, and Friday he had passed away. I was reading a book about these people in Guatemala and how the wife kept sleeping when she was at the like resort or the place that they were staying, and it was because someone was sick in another room and they were like transitioning, and so she basically was helping them transitioning by like going into the astral world and sleeping near them as they like were processing. So I felt that very strongly when it came to my grandfather, because every time I was with my grandparents, I just like couldn't stay awake.
Wow, that's so interesting.
It's really interesting considering this Buffy episode, right?
Yeah, I'm just so curious to know like what you think about this episode and the portrayal of Willow as a witch and magic.
It's funny because I remember watching Buffy like when I was in middle school, still back in New York. And I would talk about it with my science teacher, which seems ironic, but like we were very much into X-Files and Buffy and like Xena. Those are like my top shows as a kid. And for Buffy in particular, and this episode in particular, I think it's all really interesting. Willow is essentially astral projecting to help Buffy, kind of recover herself. I think there's some elements that feel a little bit watered down, right? Like one thing that I thought was interesting, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense because if Willow is just discovering, right, she's not like an expert witch. She's just now really kind of coming into her power. So like there's that scene where I guess there's like a fight happening between some of the characters, and then she's in her mind, I think she says separate and like pushes them apart. And I feel like that's really powerful because sometimes it is like that kind of telekinesis energy of like willing something. I mean, her name is Willow. Wow,
I never thought about that. True.
And then, she's just kind of trying to do the best that she knows how to do, right? The first thing that she does when she approaches Buffy is call her name, which I think is super important. And like, that's the one thing that I've taken into my own practice of calling my own self in sometimes. And all the listeners, I would say this is a very important thing to do for yourself is to call yourself in and say your own name. One thing that another witch friend of mine does too, it's like, she'll like, I'll say my own name 3 times at the end of a ceremony or a ritual. So I think to invoke someone, it is really important to have the proper naming, right? There's so much symbolism, right? So that's the other thing that I think Buffy can help. And it probably did like help people just understand some symbols behind some of the magic that we make on a daily basis, right? So she's like in the bookstore putting, it's like this whole idea of like knowledge or like her and constantly repeating like death is her specialty or death is her gift. I forget what she said.
Death is her gift.
Yeah, her gift is death. And like I can totally relate to that because I feel like I was saying with my grandfathers, I feel a little bit like a death doula, and like I feel called to do that work because I feel like it's such important work. Like a lot of people focus on birth, but we don't focus on death as a part of life and a thing that is sacred and that thing that should be held and regarded in a really, really high esteem, I mean, I think personally, like, I don't think it gets any more powerful than that. Like, what is more power? Like, what is the most powerful transformation that we have in this life and that we can witness on a personal level,
Yeah.
So the idea is that she shuts down because she doesn't think she can win the fight, right? And so she just gives up. Your thoughts really create so much of your reality. So when you get caught in thinking about lack or caught in thinking you can't or you're not good enough, and you get stuck in that, then that becomes your reality. In addition to calling yourself in, it's really important how you talk to yourself and how you allow others to talk to you. So like we get programmed, and I think society, especially if you're in America, I can't speak for other places, but I think, in America particularly, and particularly for myself growing up as a Black, queer person, Black queer witch, right? It's like this whole society has taught us and programmed us, and not just me, it profits on us hating ourselves, right?
Absolutely. That is the key of the profit, of the success, of the wealth of so many people, is the kind of brainwashing that Black people and other brown people and people of color are not worthy of success and are not worthy of abundance.
Right. But then I think it goes even further, right? Like I think about how much we get sold on beauty supply stuff, and that goes across races, right? And how much that they just sell, like, it goes across gender. Like if you're a man, you're supposed to look like this, and this is what you're supposed to do. And they program us to think this way, right? And I think the great news about now and what the pandemic has done has started to deprogram. We've started to like deprogram that story and like get a new story and tell ourselves more loving and positive things and band together in the way that we need to,
Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to shout out Willow's flannel snap down shirt. I really liked that. The fashion, the fashion in Buffy, I feel like it's inspired a whole generation of queer people,
The like bejeweled collar too, right?
Yeah, it was like
so
it had like
good.
embroidery, and it was just like, I was like, wow, I had a shirt like that. Like I did.
Yeah.
One other thing that I would just caution people if they're like are really getting into magic or wanting to do magic. My cat's meowing outside.
Yeah.
Hey, quiet down. A witch and her cat, right? But Willow kind of just unceremoniously projected, right? And maybe that was because of timing in the episode, and maybe because, again, she didn't know really the process of what should be happening. But I think if anyone's really doing that kind of work, you have to make sure that you are calling in your protection through that as well, because certain things can come up in that space and you don't know who that's going to be and you don't know what it's going to be. So I would just caution everyone to make sure that they're cleansing properly and like protecting themselves through these spiritual journeys that they're on, and making sure that they don't come back with any kind of negative attachments. I've got a term for it, actually. It's so funny. It came from a typo, but I'm calling it intermatic.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, like it was a typo. I was trying to type dramatic, but my phone, and this was years ago, and I was like, oh, interesting. Autocorrect like made this word, and I kind of like it. Like, I wonder what it means. So taking those roots of the word, right? Like inter, meaning to bury and to go like deep into the ground. And again, that like liminal space, like that portal space, into like the spiritual space. And matic, meaning like to exist on it of itself or something like that. So it's like existing in this interspace. So like that inner, like deeper kind of shadow workspace. So
very cool. I mean, I could just talk to you forever about this. We could just
hit me up
chat
anytime. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully we can have you on the show again. I mean, it would be just so great to hear what you have to say in coming
awesome.
episodes.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Tune into my Witch Wednesday. If you're not on my Instagram.
Where can we find you?
Yeah. I'm at Kandis with a K. So it's like Kandis.with.a.k. So it's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, I think it does help me stand apart from the other Candices that might be out there. I started Witch Wednesday during the pandemic just to kind of connect with community and like give people a resource to kind of talk about and understand what was happening in the astrology realm, but also like in the spiritual realm of what we're dealing with the pandemic. So that's weekly on Wednesdays at like 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. With my friend and fellow witch in Philadelphia. We kind of come together for a witching hour.
Great. And you have a film that you're about to film, right?
Yes.
You're going into production. Are you still crowdfunding for that?
Yes. Okay. So thank you for asking about that, because one, I will say my company, I had to form a company in order to like make this film. My film company is named Intermatic, which I'm so excited about. Cool. It's like those things that you just hold on to that come back. We are still crowdfunding. We are going into production on August 20th, which is like so soon. Right now, and for the rest of August, everything that we raise, we are splitting proceeds with the Lebanon crisis. And so if you donate, whatever you donate, I'm donating half to help rebuild Beirut right now, and for the rest of the month. So it's a really good time to donate if you feel interested to do that. So, you can do double good.
Great. Amazing. And you can find the link to that on your Instagram as well.
Yeah, everything, all the links are in my bio on Instagram. We've got a great GoFundMe campaign. That's where like all the major updates are happening. And then I kind of siphon that out into Instagram. But check me out. And thank you all so much at buffering the Vampire Slayer. It's so cool. I'm so excited
for this. Thank you so much for
this.
coming on. Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Fucking
hell. Yeah.
Can you even?
I cannot.
I know.
And don't ask me to. Damn it.
Candace with a K. I'll tell you what. I had the pleasure, when we got on our first call to talk about this segment, I was just like, yep. You know when you just know? I knew. So thank you, Alba. Thank you, Candace. Candace, I hope that we get to hear more from you on witchcraft. If there's any more in the show, I don't know what's gonna.
Who can say if there will be more witchcraft?
Who can say?
No,
you can learn. You of course learn more about where to follow Candace and of course Alba, who you've been hearing about for a few episodes now, in our show notes today. Yes, thank you both again.
Cut to Willow. Inside Buffy's head, inside the Summers family home in Los Angeles. You can tell because there's art everywhere, from the gallery. And there's sort of like a fake Rothko. There's a lot of sculpture. Every
colors
room is like a bright pastel, a really sunny light pastel color.
This is the 80s, right? And so this is just to bring you all back, those of you who were with us in the 80s, and bring you there if you did not exist. This was a time in which many households had toilet paper that was the color of their bathroom tile. So,
yeah.
Remember that
Remember
that? Yeah. You know what I remembered the other day? This is a 90s thing, but I just have to say it out loud. Do you remember cars with automatic seat belts? Where you close the door and the seatbelt was like,
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the colors of the Summers home here are very well done in terms of placing us in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
So
we see a little girl with pigtails and some era-appropriate bangs. And she says, "Hi, Willow." And Willow says, "Hello, Buffy."
And we're like,
it's like, who else could it have been? But yeah, he swings by Glory headquarters. And this is where we get to, obviously everything has been cleared out. And this is where we see Ben's little serial killer room.
So I need the spin-off series called Glory is Ben, Ben is Glory, because I want to understand. I want to see Ben. What do the minions do? Where do the minions go when Ben is Ben and he comes home? Well, I don't understand what's happening here.
Well, I mean, we've seen the minions interacting with Ben, and they just seem like little tryhards. They're just like, hello.
So is that when they're watching The Price is Right?
You love Glory too, right? Yeah, they're all watching The Price is Right all together after a long shift at the hospital. Ben cracks open a beer. The minions drink their porridge or whatever, and, they hang.
Yeah.
Also, wait a minute. Going back to our earlier wonderings about when Ben was a baby, did a baby turn into an adult woman and then back again? Similarly, how did Ben come to be living here? It's just all very mysterious.
Yeah, and a lot of people wrote into us actually about that and said that they think that perhaps Ben was chosen as the baby to have switched bodies with Glory, but that probably it was not until Glory's power built up strong enough to actually use that body, taking away some of our humor, but bringing probably what is the truth to the situation.
What would pass for logic in this universe?
Yeah, but a lot of questions. What I was going to say is that Spike does something that I have always wanted to do. I'm a former smoker, and every once in a while I have a cigarette. Okay, I admit it. Deal with it. And there's nothing about like walking into like an abandoned place where you're trying to look for something and pulling out a fucking cigarette in somebody else's house, but they're not there, and you just light your. It's fucking good. It's good. I like it.
It enhances the mystery, improves your eyesight by 20% for 60 seconds. But don't smoke. It's bad.
Yes, agree. Except for sometimes if you're me. Okay, so back into the dream, or I guess, I don't know what we would call this. I mean, it is, maybe this is a moment to talk about some research that we did together with Alba on grief. And because Buffy is, listen, first of all, the girl is the slayer, right? She's lost a lot. She sent her I don't know if you remember, she sent her boyfriend to hell. I don't know if you remember, she stabbed her girlfriend in the stomach, put her into a coma.
I don't know if you remember, she ran after Riley's helicopter, but then it took off too fast.
I don't... At any opportunity you have to bring Riley into the fucking
That's
conversation.
right.
Yes. If you ask any Buffy fan, the 3 biggest losses Buffy suffers, they will say... But
I mean, for fuck's sake, she just lost her mother.
Right. So she's accustomed, weathered, if you will, like many, many losses in her history, and has grief on her shoulders, speaking of the weight of the world, all the time. But she has just lost her mother in conjunction with learning that her sister is actually a mystical key and people are after her, right? So the moment when Dawn gets taken, especially in this greater context that, you know, to sort of wrap up this whole episode, we learned that Buffy is in this state for various reasons. And one of them is that she feels directly responsible for Dawn's death, even though Dawn is not dead. But all that aside, she's grieving, and we did some research, right? So grief. I'm just gonna like read you. Is it okay if I read a couple of things, Jenny?
I am Jenny Owen Youngs, and I approved this reading
because I find this very interesting. So grief. This is all coming from an article, the Columbia Center for Complicated Grief, which is what we're talking about and what we're thinking, like the place that we think Buffy might be in psychologically. They say grief is the response to loss. It contains thoughts, behaviors, emotions. I mean, we know what grief is, right? I don't have to read you the definition, but there are different kinds of grief. Acute grief, as you probably would imagine, is what happens in the early period after a loss, right? It often dominates the life of a bereaved person. Strong feelings of yearning, longing, sorrow, memories of the person who died. Activities are often focused on doing or not doing things to try to deal with the loss. This is like in the wake of that loss, right? The idea, according to this article, is that you're moving to a place in grief to integrated grief because you're always grieving, right? The grief doesn't go away. You don't get over grief, right? It just changes its form. And so you're moving, according again to this article, to a place of integrated grief, which is the lasting form of grief. So that's where loss-related thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are integrated into a bereaved person's ongoing functioning. Grief has a place in the person's life, but it doesn't dominate it. That is where we get complicated grief, right? Because in complicated grief, the process of moving from that acute grief place to that integrated grief place is derailed. And when you are in a place of complicated grief, it's this persistent form of intense grief, and it can manifest in many different, they refer to it in this article as like dysfunctional behaviors. I don't know how I personally feel about like those psychologized terms. I think there's like a lot to the word dysfunctional that I would like to like raise a little flag on. But I do think that at least in the, hey, we're not doctors caveat. By the way, we're not doctors. We just read things and talk about them.
Subtitle of the pod.
Yeah, hey, we're not doctors. A Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. But I think that it makes sense, right? You're not wondering as the viewer, I don't think, why Buffy has left the physical plane. You don't have to wonder that. You don't have to ask that. I mean, she has lost so much so repeatedly that even without all of the pieces that we're going to get folded in over this episode, and because there's more to it once we get inside of her head, just her saying fuck it and leaving makes complete sense. She is overloaded with loss and grief. Da, 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 da. You want to go to ads now?
Hacha.
As a podcast network, our focus is bringing you shows you love to listen to. But we also sell merch related to those shows. And partnering with Shopify has made that both possible and simple for us to do. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor adventures, Shopify helps you sell everywhere because they've got you covered from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. What's so fantastic about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, they provide everything you need to get control of your business so you can take it to the next level. Businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/realm.
Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. Did you know that your body starts accumulating senescent cells as early as your 20s? Also called zombie cells. These cells stop producing collagen and hyaluronic acid like they used to and start secreting an inflammatory substance that makes neighboring cells dysfunctional too. There is an answer for these zombie cells though, and it comes from our friends at OneSkin. OneSkin was founded by an all-woman team of scientists and is the first and only skin longevity company to target cellular senescence, a key hallmark of aging, with their proprietary OS1 peptide. It's scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with the thinning skin that often comes with age. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin and get 15% off using our code BUFFERING when you check out at oneskin.co. I've been using OneSkin's OS1 face and eye topicals for months now, and I have seen undeniable results. My skin feels healthier and brighter. I'm a big fan of their products, and I'm happy to recommend them. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code BUFFERING at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code BUFFERING. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you.
Okay, so thank you for going on that dive into complicated grief with us. It felt important to bring into the conversation. There's a lot happening in this dream.
Is it even a dream?
Right.
Like, what do we call it? Right? This arrested state, like whatever's going on here, this loop, Buffy's loop.
Yeah,
right?
Buffy's loop. That's good. I think we can call it the loop, right? There's, and Willow's following it. Willow's in there. Willow's on the loop. We're seeing, of course, this first scene in the house. We get fucking fuck ass, Mr. Summers. Fuck you. I hate you.
Fucking,
go away.
Fucking fuck ass.
Yeah, that's right. Fucking
His Christian
that's
name.
his
Yes, of course.
IMDb. You look up that actor. It says he plays fucking fuck ass.
Okay.
Summers.
All right. Well, happier times.
Yes.
Joyce and Hank.
Mm-hmm.
And Joyce and her hair's so shiny.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to me, like it really stuck out to me here that, you know, Willow says, Buffy, what are you doing here? And Buffy says, I like it here. She says that a few times.
Yeah.
That it's like, yeah, if you were enduring trauma after trauma and loss after loss, like this is exactly where you would want to go, to like a safe place. Your family is still one cohesive unit.
Mm-hmm.
And Dawn has come home from the hospital, and little Buffy asks Joyce if she can take care of Dawn.
First, she says she wants to be the baby.
Well, yeah.
Right? Which, like, I might just
she
feel
does.
like as
understandable.
A Buffy, yeah, as a Buffy character point especially, you know? Like, she's, even when Dawn entered the picture again now as the key, like, her instinctual response, which makes sense, was like, man, now, like, I don't even get this. I don't even get to be, like, the point of focus here in this family. But then she does. She gets to this place of, I want to take care of her. I could take care of her. And then we cut to the first time we see her put the book on the shelf. And I think, you know, this is done. I think the reason that I keep saying it's a dream, is because it's done so fucking well, very similarly to how so many of the dream sequences in this show are done.
Totally.
And you know, I think for our purposes of talking about it, we know, right? But you don't know when you're first watching this. You see her put the book on the shelf, you see the fire, you know, just by seeing the fire that this is a reference that they're in the desert. This is from the quest that she just went on. What are you laughing about, Jen?
I love when it cuts to the bonfire and Willow's just like, okay.
I actually love later when we go back to the desert and Willow sees Sinea and she's like, oh, you're the first Slayer who tried to kill us in our dreams. How have you been? Just like very Willow, right? Of like, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, we know, and I think we can talk about it from this perspective, that the loop that Buffy is on is related to this book. And I think it's such a powerful reveal when we get there in the episode. I remember, you know me, I don't remember anything, but I remember watching this for the first time because I never really thought about the book on the shelf. Like, I saw it, but like I didn't put that much stock in it. And then like all of a sudden she says, both Buffys say, I'm skipping ahead, but that this is the moment where I gave up. And we'll get there. We'll talk about it a lot, right?
And of course it has to be, because look at every other thing it's in between. You know, like this scene, it seems so innocuous and so quotidian.
Wow, fancy word
alert. I
alert.
learned words from fast food bread bowl restaurants. It's fine. It's just like the only it's like one of these things is not like the other, except it is, because it's a big moment. We just don't know why yet.
Yes, exactly. Just so well. I mean, really, again, I beg of you to tell me any show that does dream sequences or whatever you would call the loop sequence, anything. It's just, I've never seen it done as well. It's very powerful. Anyhow, we come out of the loop and we go to the hospital. This hospital scene is so short and so delightful. The first fucking thing that happens is Xander doing nothing wrong. And you can fucking pull that recording out because I don't say that often. But Xander's literally just like, how you doing, man? And Giles says, it only hurts when I answer pointless questions. It's
Dude,
so rude.
I know that you just got javelined in your torso, but like this is uncalled for.
It's so
Where is this venom when Xander does something shitty and nobody calls him on it?
But oh my god, it just, and like Nicholas Brendan's fucking face, like his response is so good. It's just because he almost like looks at the camera, you know? He's like, what the fuck is that about?
Okay, we get important info. Giles just in passing almost is like, oh wow, that's like some really advanced shit Willow's doing. Then we see Spike stealing stuff off the hospital supply cart. What is he stealing? What's he stealing? Maybe bandages for his hands that got fucked up in the RV?
Maybe some blood bags. Maybe he found a little blood bag cart.
They're not carting blood, or like the hotel, like and then we leave a little packet, like a little hotel-sized packet of blood on your pillow. He's just like grabbing a fistful of those and stuffing his pockets.
Oh, that just made me think of how cute and boutiquey a vampire hotel could be. Okay, so we get like a little cursory information, right? All of the patients in like the psychiatric unit are gone, right? All the beds are empty. We know why, because we've been watching the show. Spike is stealing shit. Then they see Spike, and this shot is so brilliant. We've seen this shot before, Jenny, but not with Spike. Do you remember the vampire
with Harmony?
Yes, with Harmony. It's so beautiful. There's a no smoking sign right behind Spike, and he fucking pulls out a cigarette and lights it. And at the request of the wonderful Alba, and just for the obvious reason,
decency's sake,
let's give it the Spike jingle.
Spike, I love you. Spike, so dreamy. Spike, your trench coat.
Okay.
Well, he looks good when he's breaking the rules. We also get from Spike in this little scene, he's like, I know this demon who knows stuff. His name is Joel Grey. He was in the original cast of Cabaret and the original cast of Wicked. And he happens to be in town. and be really plugged into all the demonic goings on. So I'm going to swing by his place and ask some questions.
I will say that I think that Joel Grey, like, I think they could have written this character into Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Joel Grey. Like, I would believe if Joel Grey also had like powers of the universe inside of his
hell yeah
self, right? Also, listen, not to put too fine a point on it, but this fucking odd couple shit with Xander and Spike, where you know, Spike is like found, you know, Ben's room is at Glory's, and Xander, of course, is like, Ben was, after all this time, Ben was subletting from Glory. Spike is like, you know what, it's worth it. And he fucking clocks Xander on the back of the head. They both scream, ow. It's just make out already, you two.
Yeah, do it. Do it for us.
So Glory
Give the people what they want.
Gloria is starting to have Ben's memories. Ben, we will see soon, is also starting to have Glory's memories. The cloak, she says, is fading.
Right. She explains to Dawn how like Ben came to the gas station in the desert and then turned into Glory and like is like, do you remember? And Dawn's like, yes, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's
it's like that's not supposed to happen. Glory implores the tall minion, please remove Ben from me by any means at your disposal. But he says this is the price. This is her personal cost for what she's about to do.
She has a little bit of a tantrum, you know? Glory likes to get her way. I imagine most gods do. And she's like, gods don't pay, and we're doing this now. And they're like, lady, excuse me, that's not how it works. If you kill the girl now, you're never going home. But before we get that, we get a little loop. We go back to the loop, right? We go to the desert. We see Sanaya. Willow hears, I'm saying Sanaya, but really hears the guide of Buffy's vision quest say, death is your gift. We see the book.
Willow's
on the
like,
shelf.
wait, death is her what?
Right. We see the book go back on the shelf, and then we go to the Summers house, and she's walking down the hallway. So we've stacked on the loop now, but we cut back out of it. So we had this like really awesome conversation that we were alluding to a little bit between Glory and Dawn about humanity, being a person. Who can do it? Who wants to do it anyway? And I think two things that I want to talk about in this scene. One is I just want to play the line from Glory.
I'm crazy. Honey, I'm the original one-eyed chicklet in the kingdom of the blind.
Just like, what? Glory, what?
Yeah, you know, she's like, I guess she's sort of just saying like she's the only person who's willing to admit that that existence is bananas.
Right.
And like, you know.
And she says.
And why.
Right. And she says, and I think like what I love about this scene and this conversation between them is that it's complicated, right? This isn't a show. It has never been a show that's going to present this argument like Glory is wrong, being a human is joyful. Nor is it going to present this conversation as though Glory is right, because there's so much to being a human, and its richness cannot be described in mere sentences, right? Glory even makes reference to poets, right? Like this is complex, and it isn't something that Dawn can answer, and it's not something that Glory will be able to answer. And you know, the fucking dig in twist of the knife is that she says, "Do you know anybody who can handle it?" And Dawn says, "Buffy." And then we cut to catatonic Buffy, who certainly is not handling it right now at all.
She's having a tough time. But before we go fully to her, I just want to say, feelings, hate them.
Yes.
Relatable content. And humans are puppets. Relatable content. Everyone getting jerked around by their feelings. So, this is so great. It's such a great deal.
Is.
She lost me a little bit when she was like, everyone's smoking, drinking, shooting up, shooting each other, or just plain screwing their brains out. I feel like she didn't get everyone. I feel like that's not 100% of the human population. And I would argue that shooting up actually might be the smallest wedge of the pie she's discovered, and like maybe she could do a little more research to cover the whole.
Well, she's feeling feelings for the first time, Jenny. She can't be held accountable for every word choice she's making in this moment. I also think that Feelings Hate Him could be a great shirt. So put that in the vault for later. Okay.
So back in the loop, Buffy's walking into Joyce's room and her mother's grave is on the ground in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And more important to me is the fact that there are still fucking masks on the wall.
Right?
Joyce, learn your lesson.
Could you imagine putting a mask on your wall after you got your girlfriend killed by hanging a mask on the wall in the first place?
R.I.P. Pat. R.I.P. Pat. And then, oh dear, then she goes down the hall to Dawn's room and smothers Dawn with a pillow and says, "Death is my gift."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. This is hard. And again, in the context of this loop, we know what's happening here, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, she's putting pieces together, and she is the Slayer. So even though this isn't a dream and it is something different, I do think that there's an element of Slayer power happening here because she's pulling information up that is accurate. Since at the end of the fucking episode, it is revealed that the only way to defeat Glory, the thing that she believes she cannot do, is by killing Dawn, the thing that she does in her fucking dream. So she, even though there's like psychological reasons for this, even though yada, 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 I just feel like the Slayer, you can take the girl out of Sunnydale, but you can't take the Sunnydale out of the girl. I said it.
You did. You did, and I'm glad you did. You know, as this episode proceeds, I can't help but think, damn, there had to be a better way for Glory to just like go about like existence on Earth without involving a human that she could turn into at the most inopportune possible time.
Yeah, but that's the way metaphysics works. That's the way magic works. That's the way this shit works, Jenny. You know, like there's always a catch. You can't just have anything be easy.
Sure. Sure.
I get it.
Well,
Ben,
it's Ben.
What the fuck happens to Ben? What the fuck happens to Ben? This is...
First of all, man, we've seen Ben be like a cute, sweet, charming nurse. We've seen Ben at the Bronze and parties, kind of like flirting with Buffy a little bit. And he's handled it all really well. What is a little hard is the extreme, you know, it's kicked up to 11, emotions are running high, and I don't know if Ben is up to the challenge of these emotions.
He's not.
It really,
he doesn't handle it well.
Where's all the blood? You know, the acting is a lot. The acting is like turned all the way up.
Well, you know what's difficult, I think, for our dear Ben is that this experience of a person or being remembering horrible things, we have seen that done on the show before by a character you may remember.
Detective Angel. You gotta be in front of an open fireplace.
Yes.
You gotta be flicker lit, or you gotta have some Venetian blind lighting. You know, your shirt should be open to a minimum like 4 buttons down.
Yeah.
You know, you should be surrounded by the finest velvets and
all
art
this
you've
guy's
collected
got is
over the
some
last
brocade.
200 years.
You know, he doesn't have all the tools. He's just got a little brocade. He doesn't have any velvet.
It's
no
true.
flame. He's got he doesn't even have buttons. So he just wasn't set up for success. But
totally.
Yeah, he's basically like this is the moment when he starts to be like concerned with himself, right? He's like, you know, Dawn is like literally about to fucking die. And he is like, what? Glory. It's just like fucking Glory. She never fucking thinks about me. Blah, 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 blah. He knocks out, I've referred to Tall Minion, just so you know, as D'Hoffryn. Even though I know it's not D'Hoffryn, I had to look up if the actor was the same because they reminded me so much of each other. It's a different guy.
Yeah, I see that.
You see
you
the
could also say
resemblance,
like
though, right?
Gandalf Minion or Magneto Minion.
Gandalf Minion. Okay.
I don't know. I have these 2 notes. Tall minion priest knocks and Ben face smashes him. Oh, has anyone ever done this? I was trying to figure out what I meant by has anyone ever done this. Beautiful listenership. I have so many questions for you today.
Oh,
have you ever bashed someone else in the face with your face? If you work in stunt profession or you
beat
brawl
people up
recreationally, I don't know. I'm just so curious about this because I understand, I have a puppy. And he's got a hard little fucking noggin that he occasionally will attack me with unintentionally. It's just like a little battering ram. So imagine a human head, which is what, like 8 pounds or something.
According to Jerry Maguire.
Right. That's like pretty big and solid. But it's like if you hit one of those with another one of them, do they cancel each other out? I'm very curious. Or maybe it's like when you were playing pool, you hit one ball into another ball and the second ball goes flying.
Yeah, I was going to say it probably has to do with not metaphysics, but actual physics. It probably has to do with the angle at which you hit the other person and the place on your head and the place on theirs, right? Because like there are
my forehead into somebody's like delicate little nose. Probably the money shot.
So, yeah, if you have headbanged any of your enemies, do write into us at bufferingthevampireslayer@gmail.com and please let us know.
Jenny has a right to know.
Who might know the answer to that question is LaToya Ferguson, because
LaToya knows some stuff.
LaToya knows some stuff about wrestling, and I bet you she would weigh in on that. So we'll have to make a little earmark that the next time we talk to LaToya, we can ask her.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're back to Buffy, and she's like, do you like dolls? And we're like, we've been here before. Willow has an amazing line. I think we've already dejaed this vu. Nice one.
Nice.
And,
very nice.
Yeah. And Jenny, you and I, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, we've been bringing in our new producer, Alba, a good amount. And when we were talking about this episode, she brought up this scene in particular, because of the doll that Buffy is holding, right? Buffy is very, very pointedly holding a doll that looks just like herself. Something that I think many I'm going to say white girls in the 90s, because we were not at a place where most of the world was giving dolls to anyone but girls. And most white girls were able to find dolls, or their parents were able to find dolls that looked like them. And so I just want to bring Alba into the episode for a minute, because she wants to talk about this scene and sort of like the extension of this in her life and her experience of Buffy.
This might seem like a really small point for a lot of people, but for me, growing up, a brown girl in North America. My mom is from Venezuela. My dad is from Chile. I never looked like the ideal beauty standard or North American beauty standards. And so picking and choosing dolls was a complicated thing for me growing up, because my hair, my skin, my eye color were not things that I saw in pop culture very often. And if I did, they weren't often painted in a good light. And I didn't want a doll that looked like me. Instead, I wanted a doll that looked like Buffy. The fact that Buffy grew up with a doll that looked exactly like her is a reflection of her privilege within society. She never had to worry about whether or not her appearance was accepted, and so she could accept symbols that looked like her without hesitation. And this wasn't the case for many young girls and boys and non-binary people growing up in North American society or in Western culture, I think. And I think this permeates like the entire world and neocolonialism and all of these things. So even though it's a really small point, seeing Buffy with a doll that is almost in the exact image as her sparked a point for me, and something that I noticed where it might not be something that other people notice right away.
Thanks, Alba.
Oh, yeah. I think this is an experience that that you and I have the privilege of not being aware of while growing up. Alba really got me thinking about sort of like visible identity and invisible identity, because like as a kid growing up, I was not at all interested in playing with dolls that felt like very disconnected. And I had a lot of like kind of like anxiety and discomfort because I would get dolls like as presents from like relatives and stuff who were just, like doing standard like girl present gifts, right? Yeah. There's so many like layers to what we form children's contextualizations of themselves, or like try to.
Yeah. I think when you and I started talking more about anti-racism in this podcast specifically, like we did get some feedback that was like, okay, but this is a show about a vampire slayer. Like, what are you really going to do? And it's like, well, this is just it, right? Like, it's always here. It's always present. The media that we consume, the things we're seeing, it's telling us something. It's always telling us something. And at this point in our like growth and learning, right, we're able to say like, okay, so what is it telling us? And why the fuck is it telling us that? And what's the problem here? But when you're a little kid, that is not usually how your brain is intaking things. You're learning just verbatim. You know, what is put on the table is what you're picking up to look at. And so it's harmful and important to look at. And so, Alba, thank you again for bringing that into the fold here. And, you know, just so fucking excited to have you on board with us and to be working with you.
Hell yeah. Okay, we hear again that Buffy loves it here. Little Buffy. She just loves it here. And why wouldn't she? She has no responsibilities except to like hang out in her play area. Ugh. To be a tiny child. And Willow sees Book Buffy again before we cut to Spike and Xander out on a, don't call it a date. They're just going to visit a friend.
Would love for their second date to be Joel Grey making them cocoa, you know? What a lovely second date. I love that Doc is like, yo, do you want some cocoa? Because it's as though he's like an all-knowing, all-seeing entity who knows that Spike loves his little marshmallows.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One thing I just want to point out here is that we return to the delightful bit of Xander like figuring out, whoa, did you realize that Ben is Glory? Which is great. But then Spike says special ed remembers, which we hate.
Yes, we do.
No, thank you, Spike. Keep
Spike
your
is
ableism.
Yeah, I was going to say Spike is, fairly homophobic, which I think we can chalk up to like his internalized homophobia. So I'm willing to give him not a pass on his homophobia, but like I think it's complex. I think there's more complexity there. His ableism, though, that's just some bullshit. And he is repeatedly says things and does things that are ableist, and saying special ed is one of them. So, nope. Hey, Doc, Joel Grey. Can we just call him Joel Grey? Like, to me, that is the character.
Yeah.
He is like, Glorificus, you don't want to mess with her. Like, I'm a small town guy and she's a big city girl. And Spike really notices him like edging over to sort of protect this box, right? It's always about blood and it's always about a box.
I just feel like Joel Grey wouldn't do this.
I agree. I agree.
This feels out of character for this demon who seems very like cool and collected.
Yeah,
like there's no reason they would have their attention drawn to that box at all.
No, and if they had, he would have just like fucking killed. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like he's powerful enough to not inch over to hide something. I agree. I thought that was a little off,
but he does.
He does,
and we get this great idiot whisper, so like creepy and good, and he's got a great big sword.
And a great big tongue.
Yup.
This was like the first.
And he kicks Spike in the face.
He does. Listen, I know we've had a lot of sexually tense moments between Xander and Spike, Spander, if you will. But when, first of all, Spike reaches into the fire. Oops, hurt his hands again. Wonder who's going to light his cigarettes for him. Second of all, Xander picks up the fucking sword and first of all, great kill, Xander. I know I've said first of all 800 times. This is who I am. You've signed up for it. But he kills, well, he doesn't kill him, but we think he kills Joel Grey. The way Spike looks at Xander when he kills Joel Grey is full of sex and candy.
Oh. They leave. Joel Grey's eyes fly open. Yeah. Willow, back inside Buffy's mind, is stopping Buffy on her loop, saying, you never killed your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like important info.
This, like... the way we get to the alley scene, it to me is so ridiculous because I just can't imagine a reason why Dawn would knock Ben out. Like, just tell Ben stay. Like, Ben would have not, you know what I mean? Ben will agree to, at this point at least. I don't think that she needed to knock him out. And of course, the jolt of being knocked out turns him back into glory. Also, so convenient there was just a pile of chains in this alley. I believe it. It is Sunnydale.
I always, whenever I enter an alley, the first thing I do is scan for a pile of chains. Of course.
Pile of chains.
I think she knocks Ben out because she doesn't trust him.
Yeah.
Or because, you know, she has no guarantee. She's the only person who's thinking about when Ben might turn into Glory or when Glory might turn into Ben.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Unfortunately, it has the opposite effect of what she's hoping for because here's Glory. She says, "You hit Ben in his soft human head, and I remember the pain." Oh, no.
Yeah, it's getting really muddy over there in the Ben Glory land. Let's play the jingle already. God, this is the episode. The summary of this episode is
Ben is Glory, Glory is Ben. Ben is Glory, Glory is Ben. In case you forget, I'll say it again. Ben is Glory and Glory is Ben.
Okay, so this is the most Glory and Ben and Glory get. They are Ben, they are Glory.
It's a ping pong match. Whip, 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 whip.
Glory offers Ben immortality in exchange for allowing her to finish this task. And he says, and I agree with him, I believe you. I do believe Glory. I fully believe that if Glory opens this portal and she gets back on her throne of goddom, that she will take care of Ben if he does this for her. I think she's a woman of her word, a god of her word.
I don't know.
And don't you think that Ben is going to say fuck off and save Dawn? Don't you think?
That's what a good guy would do. That's what we are conditioned to think Ben is going to do. But no, he's looking out for number one.
Fucking Ben. You know, I thought he was going to be a good guy. Stupid me. He hands Dawn off to the fucking minions.
I love how they just he swept down this street in his flowing robe into this alley, only to have this ping pong match with his other self, and then sweep back out of the alley into the street. And why did Glory even need him to agree? Like, the minions were right freaking there,
right?
You know.
As we've discussed in this season, Jenny, the minions are horrible at their job. They were probably playing fucking pinball at the local arcade, you know.
Yeah, they were trying to have second breakfast.
Okay, so here we are at the end of this episode, and this is when we learn, right? This is when we're watching it for the first time, we learn that the moment that Buffy, there's two Buffys now, the Buffy that has accompanied Willow to the magic box and the Buffy that is putting the book back on the shelf yet again. And she says to Willow, "This is when I quit." You know, it was just for a second. But I knew in that second I couldn't beat Glory. I knew that Glory was going to win. I could feel it. And then to add to the thing that she is carrying, the thing that makes this the weight of the world is not even that she quit for a second. It's not even that she knows she can't beat Glory. The reason she's carrying the weight of the world is because she says, I wanted it to happen. I wanted it over. This is all of this too much for me. I could cry in this recording closet of mine because it is so devastating. And she blames herself for Dawn's death. She blames herself for everything. And she also wants it at the same time because she just can't anymore.
And then Willow does something that I thought, lining right up with when she came up with a plan and delegated some tasks. Willow does something else that is very Buffy-like. She takes in this information and says, okay, snap out of it.
Yeah.
This is called guilt. It's an important feeling, but it's not more than a feeling. You know, your sister's not dead yet, but that could change if you don't help her right now.
Right. And I think there's given the larger context of where we are, obviously this was the move, right? Willow needed to get Buffy back because they're trying to save Dawn's life. But when you look at this through a lens of Buffy is really in a deep spot of grief, and she also is describing depression and a place of giving up, of not having hope. And so that, if you look at it from that angle, like Willow being like snap out of it is not the effective way. This is, again, a complicated metaphor, one that we may or may not see play out, in the future. So we'll just leave that a question mark. But I think what the show is trying to do is set up this parallel, right? We saw Glory at the beginning of the episode saying, what is this feeling? Why do you want it? It's awful. It's guilt. And Glory's beginning to feel it. But then at the end of the episode, we're hearing Willow say, this is guilt and it is okay to feel it, and you need to keep being a person, right? You need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. You need to come and save your sister. And Buffy does.
Yeah. But when they both come out of it in Xander's bedroom, Buffy just crumples.
That moment. I mean, I know there's a lot of them. I know we're like broken records at this point. But like Sarah Michelle Gellar in that moment when she comes out and looks at Willow and it all hits her and she just sobs. You sob, right? Like you just sob. How can you watch this and not sob with her? Knowing everything that she's been through, and then heaven forbid, everything that comes after, like it's so much, and it's done beautifully. And this is, you almost think like, how could you even take their friendship further? How could you even get them closer? How could you experience more with these two as best friends? And then there's more. There's always more, which is true for life, right? I mean, my best friend, I've been her best friend for 20 years. And every time I think we've reached the peak, something else in life happens and you're there for each other. And how do you show up for each other? And what does that do? How does it deepen those grooves that you have in your relationship? And these two are gorgeous and stunning in their friendship for each other, in the way that they show up for each other. And I'll just be over in the corner crying for the rest of season 5. So,
well, then let me tell everybody that the Scoobies are at the Magic Box. Avengers assemble, and Xander's like, "Did you know that Ben is Glory?" And Buffy's like, "So I'm told." And then, Dad has some bad news.
Oh, Dad has the worst news. Bummer, Dad.
Yeah.
Yo, this is so fucking... We're like joking because it's at the point in the season where if we don't joke, we will just stop podcasting. I think, Jenny, like we all know what's going to happen. And I think there's nothing more cruel we could do to our listeners than just play the sound clip of how this episode ends. What do you think?
Let's do it. Sorry, guys.
Glory plans to open a dimensional portal by way of a ritual bloodletting.
Dawn's blood.
Yes. Once the blood is shed at a certain time and place, the fabric which separates all realities will be ripped apart. Dimensions will pour into one another, with no barriers to stop them. Reality as we know it will be destroyed, and chaos will reign on Earth.
So how do we stop it?
The portal will only close once the blood is stopped. And the only way for that to happen is... Buffy, the only way is to kill Dawn.
And with that, we direct you to the Sexual Tension Awards.
Sexual Tension Award.
Well, this episode is chock full of earthly delights. We have some considerations for you. It's a little bit of a oddball episode. A lot of dark horses in the race.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about them. First of all, one assemblage you could cast your vote for, should you choose to do so, is Ben and Glory. They've been together forever. But tensions are high.
Ben and Glory are like, this whole episode, they're like, I've been working my way back to you, babe. Except they're saying, I've been working my way back to you, Ben. Got a burning love inside. Give it to him. Mom says vote Ben and Glory.
Ha! Okay. Unless you'd like to cast your vote for the coupling in the second slot, which is Spike and Xander. Come on, they've earned it. They've got so much going on.
They do.
Mysteriously, Kristin nominated Doc and his own tongue.
To state it clearly for the record,
I have nothing to say about it.
I said Joel Grey and his own tongue. So,
okay. And in the fourth slot, the clear victor, the only vote that makes sense, it's Jenny and Spike hotwiring Ben's car. Please vote Jenny and Spike hotwiring Ben's car. Thank you.
No, I'm
Cast
sorry,
your
but
vote.
I don't know if you read the fine print in the Buffering the Vampire Slayer rulebook, but it clearly states that Jenny may not win more than 2 sexual tension awards before Kristin has even won 1. So you're disqualified.
What the hell? Vote for me in the fourth slot. And you can find the poll on our Twitter at BufferingCast. Cast your vote. Make your voice heard.
Sexual tension award.
Wow, Jenny. Hey, you know what I meant to say to you? This episode is dedicated to you because it's called Weight of the World, which the acronym for that is WOW. It's a Jenny special.
Wow. Well, I always knew it would come down to this, of course. I'd like to thank the Academy. It was an honor just to be nominated.
All right.
And then to see this beautiful episode all about me come to fruition. What an honor.
Tell them who you are.
Yes, well, I'm Jenny Owen Youngs. And when I'm not watching Buffy, gosh, I'm usually writing songs and recording songs. In fact, I just put a new one out just on Bandcamp over at jennyowenyoungs.bandcamp.com on Friday. You can hear it there. You can also learn more about me at jennyowenyoungs.com. You can give me a shout on Twitter at Jenny Owen Youngs. And oh my God, if you don't want to listen to me sing, or when you're done listening to me sing, you could listen to me talk about another petite blonde protagonist on my other podcast, Veronica Mars Investigations.
Wow. Hey, I'm Kristin Russo, and when I'm not talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer from my closet, I am doing some other things. I am back with Joanna Robinson this week. By the time this airs, I will have seen Terminator, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Terminator 6, something. I don't know what the third one's called, but I am back with Feels Like the First Time. That's a Patreon-only podcast. It's on our Patreon and also on the Storm's Patreon account. It's where I watch movies for the first time that I've never seen before, even though they are iconic pieces of our shared pop culture history. So you can check me doing that, or you can go to my website, KristinNoeline.com. That's KristinNoeline, and learn about the work that I have done and am doing with LGBTQ communities. How about that? You can use that nifty spelling of my first and middle name to also find me on Twitter and on Instagram. You can even see what the inside of my podcast closet looks like. Joanna Robinson and I are on a podcast closet off. It's like what I imagine like men do with their man caves. I'm like, oh yeah, well I got this sunflower print up, and she's like, oh yeah, well I got. So we're just gonna try to one up each other till the end of time. Anyhow, who are we?
Yeah. Well, Buffering the Vampire Slayer is on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at BufferingCast. Or you could drop us an email at bufferingthevampireslayer@gmail.com. Or you could leave us a voicemail at area code 21630-BUFFY.
Hell yeah. You can support what we do here if you'd like to. We would love it. You can join our Patreon family, bufferingthevampireslayer.com. Just click on Patreon up there. You can head to our store. We've got some merch. It says, we have shirts that say things like Smash the Demon Lizard Patriarchy, Why Are Men? There's a theme. And you can also rate and review us over on iTunes if you haven't already. All of those things help us do the things we do, and many of you already support us, so thank you so much.
Until next time.
Oh my God, season 5 is almost over.
When I start at the bottom and go back to the top, walk a mile worth of hallway, turn around and stop. There's a grave in the bedroom, there's a book up on a shelf, there's a piece of my family that I can't help. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, yeah. Said goodbye to my mother, said goodbye to all my friends, said goodbye to my lover, how it always ends. Say goodbye to my sister, if I lost a paddle then, no more weight on my shoulders, no more failing them. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, yeah. Did they know I would love her when they made her from my rib? I don't know in my heart if I gave all that I could give. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, I'm dreaming. Don't wake me up, yeah.
Talmor, Shishin Murachi. Talmor is my home. My family have worked the land for generations. My gran says the island does not belong to us, but we belong to the island. And we must be ready, for a great evil is coming, and death follows with it.
Listen and subscribe to the latest season of Undertow, The Harrowing, a Storyglass production presented by Realm, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't you love it when you find a new podcast you really like? Well, let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm Mike Carruthers, the host, and in every episode you'll hear fascinating information that will make your life better from top experts. Recently, we've done episodes on why you have the personality you do, the science of luck, and the psychology of a restaurant menu. You're going to like Something You Should Know. We have literally thousands of 5-star reviews. Look for Something You Should Know wherever you get your podcasts.